Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the video. Thank you very much for tuning in. And what you see here is the FrSky X20HD radio. So the Tandem X20HD to be complete. So this is not only a transmitter, but also a receiver, hence the two antennae you see here. And on its screen you can display HD video, HDzero video to be precise. So an interesting radio in my humble opinion. And in this video we're gonna have a look at the inners of this radio. What is different opposed to the normal X20 or the normal X20S? Yeah, so how did they incorporate that HDzero receiver? And well, the normal X20 already has a screen. So, and there are a couple of little differences in its transmitter setup. Yeah. I'll talk you through that once the radio is open. So let's get started. Let's have a look at the inners of this radio.
You serious?
Alright, first order of business. I have a little bit of a cold, so I sound different than I usually do. Don't worry, I'll live. Yeah. So, and the second thing, you'll be working on the back of your radio, having it face down on your bench, for instance. So protect your gimbals and switches, for instance, with this piece of foam that came in the packaging of the radio, right? Excellent. So let's do that. Alrighty guys, this is most obviously the back of the radio. And the first thing we need to do is actually take out our battery. Not because of the electricity, but the connector will get in the way of things. So take out your battery. I think actually that if you wouldn't take out your battery, you would snip off the connector, this connector. Okay, so take out your battery, and you will have to take out 4 screws, Phillips heads. You can probably see that there are Phillips heads. One over here, one over here, one over here, and one over here. You don't even have to take off these rubber pads, grips from the radio. Yeah, and so let's unscrew those. And I wouldn't use a power tool, an electric screwdriver for instance, because I think you'll be screwing in and out of plastic. So yeah, it's the radio is well built, but still you can potentially strip out the plastic that these screws go into. And once that's done, you can carefully take off the back of your radio. Now, there is actually only one cable going through, from the back of your radio to the front, to the electronics, and that's the antenna cable that's in this handle. Your 900 megahertz antenna is actually in this handle, in case you didn't know. So, if you yank off the back of your radio, you will probably damage that cable. That's the antenna cable. So again, be careful. And I'm not sure if there's a good or a bad way to work your way around, but I'm starting at the bottom and move my way to the sides, and every now and then the back is a little bit resilient, but you'll get it off. Also, the sliders on the sides of your radio might be lifted up with the back of the radio. No biggie, you can easily put them back in place. But yeah, the back of my radio, you could probably see that, was hung up a little bit on the sliders. And they are now floating in space, so again, it's easy to put them back in their slots. Now I'll actually reposition the camera so you can see that wire, that's, well, this antenna wire. Alrighty, here we go. Hopefully this will be visible enough. I think it will be. So we gently lift off the back, and over here you can now see that one wire going from the back of the radio to this RF section of our, well, of our electronics. And that wire, that one wire, is hooked up to the second UFL connector from the left. So there's one blank, well, unused UFL connector. Then there's the one that goes to the back. And I'll actually take it off, otherwise we won't have a good look at the inners of our radio. Now, the good thing for me is that that one wire is actually an antenna wire that I won't be using much. So even if I'd forget to put it back in place once I reassemble the radio, it wouldn't matter all that much. See, these two antenna connectors are both for the 900 MHz subsystem, and I don't, well, maybe in the future, but for now I don't really use it. Okie dokie, so here are the inners of our X20HD. And I must say I'm a little bit disappointed, but yeah, not in the way you might think. The disappointment lies in that the HDzero electronics are all hidden. In fact, if you have an X20, or maybe you've seen my video in which I tear down an X20, this looks remarkably similar. The major, well, there are actually a couple of differences. In my case, my X20, so the non-HD version, doesn't have the Wi-Fi setup, the Wi-Fi chip, which is, I think, this one over here. This is your Wi-Fi, or this. I think this circuit board is missing on my X20. Another difference, however, is the population of these connectors over here. So this here, this slab over here, this shiny slab, is your RF module, so your transmitter module. And in the case of the normal X20s, you'd have 5 wires coming off of this. We've taken off one, right? So if you have the case off of your radio, you'd see 4 cables coming off of these tabs over here. And those would be 3 2.4 gigahertz antenna cables and 2 900 megahertz antenna cables. Yeah, so this one on your far left would go to this connector over here for your external 900 megahertz antenna, which in this case is now used by HDzero. So this connector over here is never used. Then this one, the second one, is the one we took off, right? That's antenna in the handle of your radio, 900 megahertz. And these 3 over here are all 2.4 gigahertz. And let's see, yeah, so one would go to this external antenna mount. This one, in this case, is used by HDzero, so this one will never be used in the HD version. This one will, let's see, oh yeah, these 2 are both in the sides of your screen. One at the top perimeter of the screen, one on, well, probably this side over here. Yeah, this side of the screen. So yeah, that's one of the differences. There is, however, one other small but significant difference, and that's this array of holes. Yeah, see, the HDzero electronics are actually behind our screen. They are in this part of the radio. That's why we don't see any of the DFI chips. Yeah. A bit of a disappointment again, you don't see anything of the DFI electronics. Not even a USB connector or an SD card slot anywhere. It's all in the monitor section of your radio. However, that DFI or HDzero receiver does have a fan, hence these holes, right? The HDzero setup can get warm, so it needs a little bit of extra cooling. And if you don't have the HD version of this radio, your radio won't have these holes, this vent. Yeah, so yeah, the only other difference is that this radio has an HDMI, the micro HDMI connector over here. So actually I don't know how to get the screen open. And also this is not an inexpensive radio. I actually want to use it, so I definitely don't want to destroy it. Also, the DFI or the HDzero electronics are basically the same as in their VRX4, their separate receiver, if you will. In case you don't know, or in case you didn't realize, FrSky simply bought the chips needed for HDzero from DVMarth. And they use it in this radio. So most of the electronics that make up this HDzero setup are in the monitor housing of this radio. The video setup, obviously, the actual ability to display the videos, but also the receiver functionality. And so again, a little bit disappointing, but for the rest the radio looks mostly the same, but the antenna situation is a little bit different. Also, surfacing. Also, there is one thing I should add. If you want to run HDzero with only this radio, you will have no option to update the firmware on your transmitters, your video transmitters. If you have the separate VRX4, the video receiver from HDzero, that unit has the ability to flash firmware onto your transmitters. Obviously, you can't get to the electronics. There's no connectors of any kind, apart from that HDMI port. So you can't use this radio to update the firmwares on your video transmitters. Do keep that in mind. I wonder how that's gonna play out in the future. Will you need to buy that video receiver from HDzero? That adds a significant cost, right? Only to be able to flash the firmware. I'd say HDzero would need to make some kind of USB device to flash firmwares. Just my humble opinion, of course. But that's basically it. Yeah, obviously you will need to reconnect that antenna and get 4 screws back in place, and that's your reassembly of the radio. And in my case, I'll remove the ratcheting on my throttle stick a little bit, and I've tried to do that by loosening this here screw, but that didn't really work all that well. So what I'll do is I'll loosen up these 2 screws over here a little bit. I did the same actually on my normal X20, and that worked out fine. So that's it. That was a look at the inners of the H20HD. And if you're left with questions, hit me up a comment down below. Catch you on the next video. Bye bye.